Good day, everyone. Nice to see you all on screen. Earlier, the presenter before me talked about demonstration teaching. Now, in order to effectively communicate an idea during your demonstration, you need to employ appropriate instructional materials, and that is what I am going to discuss with you in this session, the preparation of instructional materials. As a future educator, you are going to utilize a variety of instructional materials in order to enhance the quality of your lessons. The quality of those materials directly impacts the quality of teaching. One of the key concepts in organizational management is instruction, which is the purposeful direction of learning. One factor to make learning process effective is good instructional materials since it supports learning content and allows students to be engaged more in the teaching and learning process. So join me in today's session and let's discover how we can make instruction more effective and efficient. I'll be out for a while. I'll see you guys later. Now, let me first give you a short preview of our discussion. We are going to venture on the definition, purpose, types, and the preparation of the different instructional materials that teachers nowadays use in teaching students. Now, these are the objectives of today's session. At the end of the session, you should be able to display understanding of the topics presented, create an instructional material, and value the importance of instructional materials as aids in delivering instructions to learners. Of course, the objectives will not be achieved without your attention and participation. Now to start, let's ponder on this illustration. I'll give you a minute to look at the picture and analyze what the puzzle is trying to convey. You can type your comments or your answers in the comment section. I will read it after our discussion. As you can see, the image shows a puzzle. The orange with square hole is true. The blue one with a circle hole is also true. Now, where do you think this puzzle or this shape, which speaks about the truth, would fit? Are you done? Now, if your answer says that the puzzle can fit in both shapes, that is correct. This illustration is also true when you are planning to prepare an instructional material. Let's put it this way. For example, the holes, orange square, and round blue represent the learning styles of the learners, and the puzzle, this one, represents the instructional materials. This means that the LMs or learning materials that you have to prepare must fit to the different learning styles of the learners that you have. Diba? We have variety of learners in class. They learn in different ways. There are visual learners, auditory, kinesthetic, etc. Kaya dapat yung instructional materials nyo ay pwede sa iba't ibang learners na meron sa loob ng classroom. Here's Cone of Learning by Edgar Dale. Edgar Dale categorizes learners as passive or active learners. If the learners are engaged only in verbal receiving and visual receiving, like reading, hearing words, looking at pictures, watching a movie, looking at an exhibit, watching a demonstration, seeing it done on a location, that will only provide them with 10 to 50% of retention. Whereas, if we allow students to participate in a discussion, let them give a talk, do the presentation, or stimulate the real experience, or stimulating the real experience, or doing the real thing, This will give them a 70% to 90% of learning. So as a teacher, we have to prepare instructional materials that would help learners achieve the 90% of retention that is in the cone of learning. Take a look at this comic strip. The lecturer said, "Well, my fellow anthroposophists, I'm sure my lecture has made you think." Read the thought speech of the listeners. Why do you think they have this kind of thought? You can type your answers in the comment section. Sabi ng isa, what a bore. Yung isa naman, I stopped listening after 5 minutes. The other one, zzz, nakatulog na. And yung isa, I need a wee-wee. There can be so many answers, but perhaps the reason for this is because the lecturer talked during the whole hour of discussion. He lacks motivation or did not employ appropriate instructional materials for his topic. As a future teacher, this is something you need to avoid. The attention span of the students is short, so you have to make your discussion and the materials you use as motivating and as entertaining as television and as engaging and interactive as a playground so that the reactions na nakikita nyo sa comic strip won't happen in your class. In which category in the cone of learning do you think the situation in the comic strip will fall? 10 to 50% of retention only. As a teacher, keep in mind that if you don't plan, the students will plan for you. What are their plans? They will sleep in your class. Or, worst, they will plan to skip your class the next time. So what is an instructional material? Rimillard and Heck 2014 define instructional materials as resources that organize and support instruction. You know, instructional materials simplify complex topics. For example, in science, we have in grade 10 the electromagnetism. Para mas madali siyang ituro, gumagamit ako ng instructional materials like models or pictures or simulation and sometimes actual object para mas concrete yung learning rather than just describing it through words, di ba? Lalo na ngayong pandemic, most schools offer modular approach. Even my school. So what I did in my science class, gumagawa ako ng instructional video. I convert the concepts in the modules into videos para mas mabilis matutunan ng bata yung lesson sa module. I'll show you some of the instructional videos na ginawa ko for my students later. Next, Tyler 1987 and Dyke 1989 said that instructional material refers to those alternative channels of communication which a classroom teacher can use to concretize a concept during teaching and learning process. Sometimes, teacher lets students imagine. Imagine this and that. For students na hindi pa nakakita ng object, it's hard to imagine things. You need an instructional materials like pictures or models. Instructional material is also described as a concrete or physical objects which provide sound, visual, or both the sense organs during teaching. Agina Obu 2005. Many of the instructional materials na alam nyo can be manipulated like models, mock-ups, or real objects that provides audio or visual component necessary for learning. Lastly, according to Aina and Akintunde 2013, instructional material is used to supplement verbal explanation of concepts or any description so that the lesson could be real to the students. Sometimes effective instructional material speaks for itself. Yung tipong unang kita pa lang ng bata, alam na nila kahit di ka pa nagpapaliwanag. What is really the purpose of instructional material? The purpose of instructional material is to help the educator deliver a message creatively and clearly. It also assists learners in gaining and increasing awareness and skills, as well as retaining more effectively what they learn. Moreover, instructional material reinforce learning and potentially bring realism to the experience. For instance, students are curious about a certain place, but you can't bring them there. You can simply show a picture of the place or tour them through a video, right? If you're the teacher, imagination mo yung limit. Available na halos lahat ng videos ng lahat ng places sa YouTube or other social media sites. Instructional materials also saves time and energy on the part of both the teacher and the learner, and it also stimulates the learner's bodily senses, help clarify abstract or complex concepts, and add variety to the teaching and learning experience. Diba, as I have mentioned earlier, instructional materials stimulate and motivate learners to learn. It simply makes our way of transferring more easy. These purposes are still true even up to the situation we have now. There are different modalities used for instruction today. There are synchronous and asynchronous online teaching. There are also the blended and the modular approach. All these modalities used by teachers nowadays utilize instructional materials. Extra challenge lang since there are problems like poor internet connections, availability of gadgets, etc. Now, let me share to you this news circulating in the net. So, basahin natin ng sabay-sabay. Propesor sa Singapore, 2 oras nagturo sa online class na nakamute pala ang mic. Sinabing hindi napansin ni Dong Wang, propesor sa National University of Singapore, na aksidente niyang napatay ang kanyang microphone at tumagal ng 2 oras bago niya ito nalaman. Nalaman lamang niya ang insidente noong magtanong na siya tungkol sa kanyang mga itinuro. Ayon sa isang estudyante, ilang minuto lang nilang nadinig ang pagtuturo ng propesor. Well, it doesn't matter if this actually happened or just another fake news, though credible naman yung source. What matters is the lesson that we might get from this kind of situation. Ano sa tingin niyo? Sa tingin ko, gumamit naman ng instructional material yung teacher like a presentation. Nakalimutan lang atang gawing interactive yung discussion. Ito yung problem ng online teaching ngayon. Nagsasalita ka tapos wala ka na palang students. Naka-on lang pero hindi naman nakikinig. So you have to plan the whole discussion. Kaya nga we always have our lesson plans and make use of your instructional materials to make the discussion alive and interactive. That's the purpose of instructional material. The more you plan, the more effective the lesson and delivery. The less problems with discipline. Instructional materials add spice to the teaching learning process. Therefore, if a teacher, specifically all of us, innovates instructional materials, then we can easily catch the attention of the learners. Aside from the purpose of instructional materials, we also have the guiding principles. The instructional materials should reinforce and supplement, not substitute for the educator's teaching efforts. You have to bear in mind, of course, that us, teachers, are still the best instructional materials. And instructional materials should not substitute us. Rather, it should only serve as supplement for our discussion. Instructional aids should be appropriate for the physical considerations and the learning environment. One example, I think, is the situation we have now. The use of technology as aid for instruction is common since physical conduct or the face-to-face classes are strictly prohibited. What are the common instructional materials ang ginagamit ngayon? Comment nyo nga. Yes, we have PowerPoint presentations, videos, ebooks, the websites, etc. And The message imparted by instructional materials must be accurate, valid, authoritative, up to date, state of the art, appropriate, unbiased, and free of any unintended messages. Remember that we have diverse learners. They have different learning styles, so we have to ensure that the materials are designed for all types of learners. And a little emphasis on the unbiased and free of unintended messages, especially if your lesson has something to do with religion or politics. Now, how do we design instructional materials? In designing instructional materials, we have to remember the ADI model. A stands for analyze, D for design, D for develop, I for implement, and E for evaluate. Adi, first and foremost, we need to take a look into the needs of the learners. If, for example, you want a remediation tool for your failing students, create an instructional material that you think is necessary for the remediation of the students. And then after identifying or analyzing the needs of your students, you design the learning objectives. Set the goal para clear kung saan mo gagamitin yung material and kung anong material siya. Next, develop instructional materials and content. After that, implement the material by delivering training, and then lastly, evaluate the materials and delivery. The question is, why do we need to evaluate? Of course, to check whether the materials developed is effective or not para magamit mo siya ulit if it's effective. If it's not, you have to create another one or you have to develop another one. How do we make our instructional materials attractive? Para tayong salesperson or seller and our students are the customers. Hindi enough na marunong ka lang gumawa ng instructional materials. Dapat marunong kang gumawa ng attractive instructional materials. So what makes an instructional materials attractive? It must be relevant, timely, and attention grabber. These things are needed in making an effective instructional material. Remember that students nowadays are so advanced in terms of the technology since they use it in everyday life. So instructional materials should be as interesting as the gadgets they are using. Innovations in teaching is the key. 21st century learners need innovative way of learning. Lalo na ngayong pandemic, there are teachers na hindi masyadong up-to-date when it comes to the use of technology in teaching. Ngayon natin dapat ipakita ang versatility natin when it comes to teaching. Now, moving on to the types of instructional materials, we actually have four types. We have the printed and duplicated materials, the non-projected display materials, the still projected display materials, and the technological instructional materials. However, we will only categorize these four types into two since we will focus only on the instructional materials na common or ginagamit ng mga teachers here in the Philippines. Rich countries have advanced learning resources compared to developing countries like ours, of course. Now choose. Which one do you prefer is best? Conventional or technology based? Type your answers again on the comment section. Well, conventional in vernacular term, makaluma or traditional. Technology-based is with the use of modern technologies. Which one is best for you? What are the conventional materials used still up to this day? We have chalkboard or blackboard. Sa college, meron ng whiteboard pero sa basic ed, commonly blackboard na talaga. There are also secondary schools na may whiteboard na din, like our school. Para sa mga hindi pa nakakita ng blackboard, ganito po yung itsura niyang, yung mga image na nakikita niya dyan sa screen. So that is an example of blackboard. Okay. So we also have the diagram. It's a graphic design that explains rather than represents. Example, here is a diagram showing how water from streams are filtered. So this is the stream. Mag-undergo siya ng coagulation process, to sedimentation, to filtration, to disinfection, sa storage, and then pwede nyo na siyang inumin. So this is the diagram showing how water from streams are filtered. Next, we have flashcards. Sa grade school and even in secondary school, math, chemistry, the elements, gumagamit tayo ng flashcards, especially during recitation. Sa mga elementary or grade school teachers, eto, A for apple, B for ball. For mathematics, multiplication table, ginagamit natin yan. So there are other subjects na gumagamit pa din ng flashcards kahit hanggang ngayon. We also have pictures, posters, and charts. This one. They are also good instructional materials until today. Pictures, posters, charts, sa mga modules, sa learning activity sheets, meron pa rin mga ganito ngayon. Of course, we still have the books, the modules, the learning activity sheets. Yun. Ito yung mga instructional materials na until now hindi maluluma since we use books every day. We use books as references. Yun. And then, we have mock-ups, models, and realia displays. Mock-ups are full-size structural model. This is an example of a mock-up, a full-size structural model. Models are miniature representations of something. Yung mga maliliit na pwedeng mag-represent, like this one, the parts of the body, parts of the human body. While realia displays are real-life objects. This is a real-life brain of a human brain. Examples are specimens, rocks, plants. So those are examples of conventional or traditional instructional materials. Next is the technology-based instructional materials. We have the projected, the social media, and the modern teaching applications. In the new normal education, these are the usual instructional materials used. Now, let's find out what are the projected materials. These are the PowerPoint presentations, films, or even videos. Now, for social media, we have Facebook, Twitter, email, YouTube, or even Instagram. You may also include TikToks. These things are now used as instructional materials and even modes of instruction. We can now relay instructions or informations via messenger and etc. Modern teaching applications are also now used lalo na ngayong pandemic. Ano bang mga ginagamit nyo ngayon sa online class? Google Classroom, Google Meet, Zoom, Jamboard, Google Sheets. Ano pa ba? We have Quiz-Ease, Grammarlink, Schoology, Canva, and a lot more. In today's learning delivery modality, social media plays an important role in delivering instruction. We use it to connect, to engage, to inform, to reflect, to share, to be challenged, to be supported, to lead, to learn, and to inspire. So these three instructional materials or technology-based instructional materials works hand in hand in today's teaching learning process. Take a look at this information cycle, how this three works. Social media apps, the modern teaching applications, and the projected materials made by this. Other countries have this: smart board, smart TV, holograms, digital presenter, simulators, augmented reality, virtual reality, and many more innovations in instructional resources. So there are also other schools in the country, private schools, na nag-offer na din ng paperless classroom. So purely technology na yung ginagamit nila, mga laptops, iPads, tablets, yun. And finally, how do we prepare instructional materials? So we're now in the preparation of instructional material. Common instructional materials na ginagamit natin ngayon is the PowerPoint. Even in online classes like Google Meet and Zoom, gumagamit ang teachers ng presentations like this one, and also instructional videos. So in this part, we will focus on the preparation of these two materials, the PowerPoint presentation and the instructional videos. I'll show you later how I edit my videos and even show you the videos I made for my science class. For PowerPoint presentation, one simple advice that I can give is to, of course, make your presentation simple at the same time attractive. Sometimes we are too overwhelmed with making our presentations attractive that we overdo it. Minsan nakakapagod sa mata ng bata lalo na pag bombarded masyado ng information or words ang presentation natin. So we have to remember to really keep it simple. Hindi kailangang sobrang dami ng animation or transitions. Keep it simple. Just keep it simple. There are some guidelines that we should consider in making PowerPoint presentations. First, be consistent. In terms of its design, fonts, animations, just be consistent. To avoid confusion on the part of the learner, kailangan all throughout the presentation, pare-parehas yung font styles mo. Rather than kukuha ka or gagamit ka ng iba-ibang klaseng font styles or font sizes. Second, don't distract. Avoid using destructive clip arts and animations. It will cut the attention of the students. They will be distracted. Therefore, instead of listening to your lecture, magfo-focus na sila dun sa clip art na nilagay mo. So, avoid using destructive things in your presentation. Third, don't overboard. Huwag kang lalagpas sa screen size mo, otherwise magka-cut yung presentation. In terms of fonts naman, just keep it simple, legible, common, no variation, and avoid using all uppercase. Usually, gumagamit tayo ng uppercase if it's a title. Pero sa baba, wag na kayong gagamit ng ng all caps. Usually, ginagamit natin yung uppercase kapag meron tayong ini-emphasize na words or nilalagyan lang natin siya ng color. For size, we have to remember, lalo na ngayon na may online class, there are students na nanonood using their phones. So we have to consider the font size and styles. Size 40 to 24, visible pa siya. According to Guy Kawasaki, the 10-20-30 rule, ang sabi niya, for the presentation to be effective, dapat 10 slides lang meron sa 20 minutes presentation. And text size, dapat hindi bababa sa 30. Even in a face-to-face class, there are students with eye problems or yung mga nasa hulihan, makikita pa din dapat yung presentation mo. For font styles, use sans serif fonts like Arial, Verdana, Tahoma, Comic. Magandang font styles yan sa PowerPoint presentation. Avoid using serif fonts like Courier, Georgia, Times New Roman kasi masakit yan sa mata. You can also underline or bold or italize your fonts if necessary para mabigyang emphasis or ma-emphasize yung mga words na gusto mong bigyan ng focus. For colors, you can play with it. Just make sure na hindi masakit sa mata and dapat yung colors blending. Kapag very dark ng background mo, dapat light colored naman yung mga fonts. Kasi kapag ginamit mo na pareho siyang dark, hindi na siya magiging visible. I prefer using white backgrounds katulad ng presentation ko ngayon. White backgrounds lang ang gamit ko para feeling ko maaliwala sa mata and mas clear or parang mas nag-stimulate ng learning kapag ganito yung background na ginagamit ko. Anyway, that's my opinion. Yun. And finally, we have instructional video. I'm going to show you how I work on my videos. I just hope that you will be inspired to create instructional videos as well. Disclaimer lang, I am not the best in this craft. There are so many people out there, and even siguro sa inyo, who are way better than me in editing. Ang mga pictures na nakikita nyo were some of the latest supplemental videos I made. Mga thumbnails yan or cover ng videos ko. Halos puro physical science. So I'll show you one of my videos and we'll discuss how I created it after. Let's watch this. Okay, paano ko ginawa yung video na yun? First is script writing. When you're writing a script, imagine that you are inside the classroom and magtuturo kayo sa mga students nyo. Dapat yung script nyo, nandun na yung introduction, then recall, presentation of the learning competency, and the concepts. Hindi ako nahirapan gumawa ng script kasi I just copied and paste the concepts in the module. Here is an example of the script. Nilalagay ko siya sa slides, then babasahin ko na lang sa likod ng camera during the shoot as you can see in the picture. Example ng script, yung nakita nyo kanina. Hello grade 11, welcome. In our previous video, you learned that light elements, hydrogen, helium, lithium, and beryllium are the only elements formed in the early universe through the process called Big Bang nucleosynthesis. So, yung magsaserve as prompter nyo, ilalagay nyo sa likod ng camera. Low budget lang tayo. Phone lang yung ginagamit ko sa pagkuha ng video. And yung laptop ko yung nagsiserve as prompter. And gumagamit ako ng green screen para ma-remove yung background ko during the editing process. The only tips I can give you is just to make it short, 6 to 10 minutes depending on the length of the concept. Usually, kasi pag masyadong mahaba, nagiging boring na sa mga bata. Avoid also the hang time or speech gaps. As much as possible, tuloy-tuloy lang dapat yung discussion. Iwasan nyo ang pag-pause ng matagal. That's why script is very important when recording. Then, keep it simple and clear para mabilis ang transfer of learning and maging effective yung instructional video na ginawa nyo para sa mga bata. So yun, tatlo lang. Make it short, avoid hang time or speech gaps, and just keep it simple and clear. Anyway, sa paggawa naman ng video, imagination yung limit. Imagine nyo lang yung mga placement ng hands. Like, for example, yung nakita nyo sa video ko kanina, alam nyo dapat kung saan mag-a-appear yung mga image na ilalagay nyo or yung mga animations na ilalagay nyo. For my video editing, in terms of the editing app, maraming editing apps ngayon. Search lang kayo sa Google Play Store. Pero yung ginagamit ko is the KineMaster app for Android phone. Meron din namang CapCut. Maganda din yun. Very user-friendly kasi siya and mataas na yung quality ng video. You can search for tutorial videos kung paano mag-edit using the app. I also have one. Meron akong tutorial video kung paano ko ginagawa yung mga videos ko na yun. Hanapin nyo na lang sa channel ko. And later on, ipapakita ko kung ano yung channel ko. And if you have time, you can of course subscribe. I also use Adobe Pro 2020 sa laptop. And depende kasi sa videos na ginagawa ko. There are videos na masyadong mataas or nagre-require ng mataas na quality, lalo na kapag accomplishment reports ng school. So, gumagamit ako ng Adobe Premiere Pro 2020. Sa laptop ko siya ini-edit. And your PowerPoint presentations can also be used to create a video. Paano gumawa ng video using your PowerPoint presentations? Watch this simple or short tutorial video. Okay, so promote ko lang, I have tutorial videos kung paano mag-edit ng video, and for more instructional materials and science, please click and subscribe to my channel, Tantan HD, nag-promote. So I'll grab this chance para makakuha ng supporters sa channel ko. So, yung mga science teacher, kung may kilala kayo, gumagawa ko ng mga instructional videos in science. So, yung mga videos na ginagawa ko, ina-upload ko sa YouTube, double compensation, ginagamit ko na siya sa mga bata, and at the same time, nakakatulong pa yung mga videos ko para sa mga ibang estudyante sa ibang lugar and even in other countries kasi ginagamit din siya. Plus, I earned a little from it. So, kayo, if you wanted to create videos and mag-venture sa YouTubing industry, of course, you can always create your YouTube channel and just PM me and I'll subscribe to your channel as well. If you have questions, clarification, and comments, please type it in the comment section. And I would like to end our session with a quote. The fact that you worry about being a good teacher means you already are one, by Jody Pickle. And here are my references. Some parts of my presentations were taken from these YouTube channels, and some parts of my slides were also copied from the slide share or downloaded slide share from these references. And the clip arts I used are from www.clipartkey.com. So that's it. Thank you so much for listening, and I would like to express my sincerest thanks for inviting me to be one of your speakers today. See you all next time. Thank you very much.